Oh, hey, sorry, let me just finish this last sentence. Okay, thanks for waiting. I'm just writing on my blog. After I went through the simulation, I realized how important it is to maintain our system of government. At first, I thought I could not help maintain our state and federal government because I'm not old enough to vote or hold public office. But then I realized, in a democracy, my ability to help keep the system is limited to my ability to vote, but not in a republic. In a republic, I can be involved in other ways. So, after the simulation, I started a blog. It is a place where I can share my opinions and research on topics important to me and to our system of government. Sorry, I got a little off track. Now, where were we? Oh yeah. When you were battling for independence, you had a clear opponent, the director and parliament. Now, you're debating in your constitutional convention. But is it to win the battle over a tyrant? This debate does not exist to defeat your opponent, like when you defeated the director. This debate is to determine the best solutions for the challenges that you face with self-government in the class. It may be helpful to change the way you think of this debate as you frame your arguments. Do you want your classmates to lose as a result of your winning? Or do you want to find solutions in which you can all agree, so everyone wins?
Welcome again to our study of the United States Constitution. I'm Danny Kramer. In an earlier tape, we saw James Madison explain to his fellow Virginians his plan for a new government using the mugs and glasses of the city tavern. One glass represented the executive branch of the proposed government, one the judicial, and two the legislative. Two glasses for the legislative because the Congress he proposed was divided into a Senate and a House of Representatives. But the central government in 1787 had only one branch and was also called Congress. Under the old Articles of Confederation, the states were allowed to send as many delegates to Congress as they wished, though each state delegation could cast only one vote. So states with large populations, such as Pennsylvania and Virginia, had only one vote each. And states with small populations, such as Delaware and New Hampshire, also had one vote apiece. This meant that if a state had only one person in it, it would have as much voting power as one with a population of 1,000 or 1,000,000 people in it. Not very democratic, was it? And if the new government, with a president and courts and a Congress making nationally binding laws, were to be truly democratic, its voting system would have to change. Well, that's how Madison and others in the larger states felt. They believed that members should be elected to the new Congress in numbers which corresponded to the populations of their states. They felt that it was the American people, not the states, that should be represented in Congress. The new government was to be a creation of all the people, not an alliance of independent states. The small states saw that such a change would greatly reduce their power in the new Congress. This led to a disagreement over how states were to be represented in the new Congress. The debates that followed proved to be the most heated in the convention. Time and again, delegates from one state or another threatened to walk out. But Madison seemed unable to compromise on this issue. Washington, Franklin, and other delegates from large states did eventually see the need for compromise. They knew that only compromise would keep the convention from breaking apart. The whole convention hinged on this compromise. Would they do it? Well, let's see how they work this out. I'm Dan.
Gentlemen, please accept my heartfelt thanks for the honor of being elected president of this convention. I need hardly tell you that the nation watches us, as I think do the powers of heaven. Let us do our best.
Mr. Chairman.
Chair recognizes Mr. Dickinson of Delaware.
Mr. Chairman, gentlemen, I, as well as others, see the need for a change in our form of government. But now, turning to the second resolution, I see words which, unless struck out, must kill it. Resolve that the rights of suffrage in the national legislature ought to be proportioned to the number of free inhabitants. Now I turn to you, Mr. Madison, as we may perhaps suppose that yours is the mind behind the Virginia plan. Do you mean, sir, by this clause that the large states will have more delegates in the new legislature than the smaller states?
Yes, because of their greater populations.
And this is done in order to destroy the equality of the states in the new Congress?
Most certainly not, sir. It is done that power might at last be derived from the people, Mr. Dickinson.
Well, I'm sure this form of representation appeals to Virginia and to Pennsylvania and Massachusetts, all large states. And it may appeal to the Deep South, the Carolinas and Georgia, which believe they will become large states. But the smaller states will not accept such tyranny.
Tyranny, sir?
The Delaware delegation cannot change this system. Our instructions are clear, and if we discuss it, it will become our duty to retire from the convention.
Please, Mr. Dickinson. The people, not the states, must be represented equally. Surely you can see that, sir.
No, Mr. Madison. I cannot see that.
Mr. Dickinson, even if you're not allowed to vote for proportional representation, surely you're not required to walk out if others vote for it. You'll destroy the convention if you leave.
Perhaps it is best if we leave this resolution for a while. I propose, Mr. Chairman, that we postpone discussion and voting on the second resolution of the Virginia plan.
Second, and let every state consider well losing its vote in Congress.
The Virginia plan does no such thing.
Order. The proposal has been made and seconded. All in favor of postponing discussion of the second resolution signify by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed signify by saying no. We will take up discussion of other resolutions of Governor Randolph's plan in committee tomorrow. Today's session is adjourned.
And so the great issue of the convention has been postponed. No doubt to allow John Dickinson of Delaware and delegates from the other small states time to concoct a plan to defeat proportional representation in Congress.
The June 9th session of this convention will now come to order.
Mr. Chairman,
Chair recognizes Mr. Dickinson.
we of Delaware, and indeed others here, feel that it is now the proper time to review the most troublesome resolution in the Virginia plan. How the states will be represented in our new Congress. If representation follows population, the large states will always control the legislature. Delaware's voice will never be heard. We will never confederate if this pernicious scheme is adopted.
We are not talking about states, but people. Are not the citizens of Pennsylvania equal to those of Delaware? Does it require 150 of the former to balance 50 of the latter? I will never confederate on Mr. Dickinson's principles. Let the small states do as they please. The rest of us will unite.
Hear, hear.
Chairman,
Mr. Benson.
Pennsylvania and Virginia wish to strip us of our equal rights of suffrage. Now, they talk of equality, but what they really want is an enormous and monstrous influence. Never! Never!
Order, gentlemen, order.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Sherman.
we can't start arguing and threatening on this issue. Now, I've thought of a plan that ought to satisfy everyone here. Let's have the members of the lower house of the legislature be elected according to the population in each state, just as the Randolph Plan says. That ought to satisfy the larger states. And then in the upper house, the Senate, let's have each state have just one vote. One vote and no more, just as we've got in the Congress now. That ought to please the smaller states. And I say, let's not argue about it. Let's vote on it.
Second.
Massachusetts?
No.
What, sir? You do not honor our compromise?
Your compromise, sir.
Massachusetts. I might have known.
Out of order, sir. The roll call will continue. Connecticut?
Aye.
New York?
Aye. With dissent.
Noted. New Jersey?
Aye.
Pennsylvania?
No, Mr. Sherman.
Delaware?
Aye.
Maryland?
Maryland votes aye. With dissent.
Noted, Mr. Jennifer. Virginia?
No.
North Carolina?
No.
South Carolina?
No.
Georgia?
No.
Mr. Sherman's second motion fails.
Now you've torn it.
That ends debate on the Virginia plan in the Committee of the Whole.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Dickinson.
this vote taken in committee is not a binding vote. We all know that. That is, the small states must deliberate. We ask for 1 day's postponement.
But the Virginia plan has already been thoroughly debated. It is ready for a binding vote in General Assembly. Why should it be sent back into Committee of the Whole?
So that it may be discussed on an equal footing with Mr. Patterson's plan.
And the convention is so voted, 6 states to 5. The session is adjourned until tomorrow. The gentleman may come forward to make copies of Mr. Patterson's proposals.
You see the consequence of pushing things too far. If you had followed Mr. Sherman's compromise, your plan would never have been returned to committee. But you insist on sweeping all before you to the advantage of the large states.
To no one's advantage, sir, but the American people's.
Indeed. Then this convention meets in vain. Where is the advantage to the American people then?
Mr. Madison, do you like music?
Not all of the compromises reached in the Federal Convention were good long-term solutions. One example of a poor compromise is the one which allowed slavery to remain in America. Nevertheless, it was essential for strong-willed men representing competing interests and points of view to adjust to one another's concerns in order for the convention to succeed. Though the document produced in Philadelphia was quite different from anything delegates imagined it would be, almost all were able to support the final draft with enthusiasm. Compromise between competing interests is still an essential process in any self-governing democracy. Representatives of the people with strong differences of opinion must respect each other and value our system of self-governance more than they value winning. That was true in 1787, and it is still true today. Next time, we'll see how it finally came together.